and welcome. I am Glenn Kosgue. I am a resource connector with the Office of Economic Revitalization. Our mission is to connect small businesses with resources to help them thrive and create good jobs for our community. This Talk Stories video will help small business build a relationship with their banker. Our guest today is Reid Chung, Vice President at HawaiiUSA. Reid has spent his entire career in the financial sector and has the nose and ins and out of banking. Hello, Reid.
Hi, Glenn. Good to see you again.
Yeah. Okay, let's start with a question. What is the first step a business should take to build a relationship with a bank?
Oh, that's a great question. You know, in my years of experience, I've seen a lot of businesses come and go in different financial institutions. I really think an important thing from a business owner standpoint to do to start building a good relationship is to really do some homework and research. It's really easy, I think, to just look at where I have my accounts, even on the personal side, and say that's going to be my bank. Right? And there's nothing wrong with that. If you have a trusting relationship with people you work with there, you trust the organization can help you, then sure, that's a great way to do it. But I would say do some research. So out there are many different lenders, both locally here, abroad, online, different types of entities, right? Whether that be an investment firm, a local bank, a credit union that could help. Right? So really from the business owner standpoint, this is your chance to, almost like a job interview, to interview lenders, to interview banks and see which is the right one for me. Right? So it could be something that's based off of convenience, like I live close to this financial institution, it's going to be good for my business, I can run right there if I need something. Right? Or it could be the products and services. And I would say just look at the products and services, because on the outside it looks like everybody's got the same products and services. But really what I want to focus on if I'm the business owner is which business really which bank focuses on small business, right? So different financial institutions, even if they have a product set for it, that may not be their primary focus. And when I say small business, this is falling into the category of like your mom and pop shops, right? Less than 100 employees, or less than $1 million in annual gross revenue, right? So these businesses oftentimes need attention that sometimes larger banks or credit unions can't give to them, right? Because they're not structured that way to provide the products and services for that niche of business. So I would really say do your research, find out what's right for you, figure out what's important, whether it's convenience, whether it's the relationship I currently have, whether it's the products and services that financial institution offers, and make your decision that way.
Okay. Is it better to ask for a business, I guess, banker for their financial needs?
Yes.
Or is it a loan officer?
Yeah, so I think depending on which entity you go to, they're called different things, right? They could be called relationship bankers or personal bankers or business bankers or commercial bankers, right? So depending on the bank or financial institution you go to, there could be a different title for that role. But yeah, I think you want to go to somebody, first of all, that understands business, right? So not everybody that works in a financial institution knows how to deal with small businesses. You want somebody that knows your industry, right? So if I'm a doctor or a dentist, let's just say, or if I own a construction company, right? I'm going to want to work with somebody who, one, has the experience, meaning that they haven't worked in that industry, but they know that industry. They've worked with clients that are from that industry, right? So they know my life cycle. They know my cash flow cycle. They know how I get customers. They know how I make revenue, right? They know what kind of debt I need to support and sustain my business. So it's really trying to understand who in this organization has that expertise to understand the industry I'm in. Second to that is who can I build a relationship with, right? So I look at it like getting a banker is like finding a boyfriend or a girlfriend. You want to find somebody that you know you can trust, you know that's going to be there to support you, right? And is going to have your back, right? So when it comes to a banker, those are really important qualities from the banker end and from the business owner end that they need to start building.
Right.
And once you build that relationship with somebody, I think you're going to find it's going to be a lot easier to help grow your business along with somebody else like that.
Okay, thank you, Reid. That makes very much sense. How's about this one? Once a small business finds a bank they like, what kinds of questions should they ask them?
Oh, that's a great question. So there's a lot of questions you could ask your banker, right? And some of these things I just covered. But to me, if I think you take the approach of doing three things from both the business owner end and even from the banker end. So if you're a banker watching this webinar, you can take notes on this too. But there's really three things you got to look at. One, being curious. 2, being proactive, and 3, being resourceful. So let me just kind of define what these are. So if I'm curious, right, from a business owner standpoint, if I'm interviewing my banker, then I want to know their background. I want to know their expertise. Like I said, I want to know if they've worked with companies that are in my industry or understand me as a business owner and how I started, and then how I'm going to grow, right? So curious, ask those questions about the person. Don't be afraid to, because I think it's really good if you start with a dialogue and then that type of relationship. From the banker end, being curious will look like, if I don't really know how the person grew his company or the industry that they're in, I should be curious to want to know. Right? So it doesn't mean that I'm only going to be chosen as their partner if I totally understand the construction industry. But if I'm curious enough to understand and to want to know, first of all, Glenn, how did you start your business? Second of all, what are your plans for growth? Right? How do you plan to make revenue? How do you plan to grow your company? And then what do you want out of this long term? Right? So if I'm curious, I ask you those questions, I think that's a good start to a building block to a good relationship. Being proactive on both ends look like this. So if I'm the business owner, my proactiveness will be, am I going out there and doing the research, like I said, to figure out, is this bank or financial institution the right one for me? 2, am I being proactive enough to say, like, okay, this is what I know I need for my business. Are you able to help me get there? Right? So if I know my long-term goal is to eventually buy my own space to operate in, right? Is this the lender? Is this the banker that's going to help me get there? Right? And so thinking about what my needs are and being proactive about acting on those by asking the right questions and building the relationship, I think are important. On the banker end, the proactiveness will look like from the banker side is, am I thinking ahead about what this business owner is going to need, right? So if I know that this person is starting their small retail shop, right, and they need to buy inventory. Okay, at some point they have cash flow to do that now. At some point they're probably going to need cash injection into the business to support that inventory purchase. Or if I know that this company does a lot of contracts with the state or federal government, I'm probably going to need, I'm going to assume in my proactive state that this person's going to eventually need a line of credit to help maybe float some of those payments and receivables coming in. Right. So as a banker, I should be able to be proactive, ask those right questions of the business owner. Are you expecting these delays or these things to happen in your business so that I can help you? And then the last is being resourceful. So if you're the owner, on the resourceful side is, again, doing research, right? Getting my resources in order. So again, this is really truly understanding my business. So do I have a business plan put together, right? Do I have all my docs filed with the DCCA? Do I have an accountant that's helping me with my books, right? Or somebody internally that's doing that? Do I have invoices or receipts that I'm producing for my business, right? That are going to be important for me to show my bank at some point that I've got income coming in or I've got expenses that I'm paying, right? Do I have my personal finances in order to be able to support my business, right? So all these things I need to be resourceful. I need to provide that as my resource to my bank as part of this partnership. So a lot of times business owners will come in and it's like, well, what can you do for me? But they don't realize that if they need access to capital, they're going to need to provide a lot of these things to their bank, right? So how do I prepare myself now so that when the ask comes, it's an easier ask for me to do that? And then on the banker end, being resourceful, again, is figuring out which resources in the bank this person is going to end up using and how can I best prepare that owner for that time, right? So again, I go back to the example of eventually I want to buy my own space. So if I want to buy my own space from the banker end, I'm probably going to need to prepare this guy to get solid 3 years of financials in order, right? So what does that mean? That means we're going to grow. We're not going to take on that much additional debt. We're going to show increase in revenue. We're going to show steady customer base or steady receivables. And then we're going to prepare you for ownership. Do you have enough saved, right? What does your personal credit score look like? All these good things that we can use in the future to get you to that goal. So again, through that conversation, figuring out what the business owner wants and then being resourceful because I have the resources as a banker, right? To better prepare them to say, okay, if I know he wants to get here at some point, I need to get him through this maze of things that he needs to do as a business owner to prepare him for that moment. So I look at it that way. It's easier said than done. Obviously, in the real world, there's a lot of complication to it. But I think if both ends remember to do CPR, be curious, be proactive, and be resourceful, it's going to go a long way.
Because I know some businesses they have a hard time because the owner themselves are the HR, they do the accounting, they work in the business, and I know some of the accountants that service them says, wow, you'd be surprised. They come with a shoebox and they have all the receipts in there, and you got to figure out what they spent and how they, and what's their profit line. And sometimes it's kind of hard to decipher all that information. So I guess it'll be the same for the banker.
Yeah.
If they bring a shoebox in, this is all my 1 year revenue and purchases.
Yeah.
They can't figure it out.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that, because I think a lot of lenders didn't realize, and we kind of woke ourselves up to it during PPP, during COVID, that when these businesses had to produce the documentation, right, around payroll and things like that, you realize, wow, this is how these guys have been keeping it, right, on the almost like on the back of a napkin.
Right.
And you don't blame them, because, like you said, they wear a lot of hats in their business. So it's really, again, that understanding of this is where I want to get to, and how can the bank best prepare them to do that? Because the biggest barrier to entry to capital is the business owner not knowing they needed something, right, and then having to go backwards to get it done, right? So, and financial statements are a big example of that, right? I need 3 years of financial statements to prepare for my business. I don't even do that now, right? So now I got to go pay a CPA to go and do that. And if I have a box of receipts, it's going to take me a long time.
Yeah, because I think as most business owners, they hire accountants, but some of them it's not CPAs, so they don't advise them about how their business is going, if it's profitable, or they got to watch out for this, watch out for that, to keep their business going.
Yeah, and they're there to crunch the numbers, right?
Right.
And even the banker, we can't serve in that accounting purpose.
Right.
So it's not our job to give tax advice to the business owner. But what we can do is we see cash flow cycles for similar companies, right? So we can understand, when things are going to be good for the business, when times are going to be tough, and then how to best position yourself to prepare for those tough times.
Right.
Right. And then prepare yourself financially and get your finances in order. I think that's the biggest push is from the lender side. You see a lot of businesses come in and they're not prepared to be able to take out a loan because they don't have that done. So how can we close that gap for the business owner, right? And that's where OER has a lot of resources, I think, that could help with that.
Right. That's what we try to do. We try to steer them to the resource and have the owners figure out, if that's what they're looking for, or if that's what they need. It's just pointing them to the right direction to better their business.
Yeah.
That's what we try to do, and work with financial institutions like yourselves.
Yeah.
Yep, that helps it out. Okay, thank you, Reid, for sharing this great information with our audience. We have more videos about small business funding and other essential topics. If you have any questions, do not hesitate to contact us at BCE, that's Boy Charlie Eagle, at honolulu.gov. Thank you, and I'll see you again.